Hello! And welcome to Sort of Off Topic, the podcast which is kind of like Sort of the Story, which is also a podcast that we do, except Sort of the Story, we do mostly like fairy tales and folktales, and this one we do other kinds of stories.
Anything we fucking want!
Anything we want!
You don't get to tell us what to talk about. We decide.
But also if you have a topic you want us to talk
about,
God, suggest
do you, know what we should talk about? Let us know in the Discord.
Yeah, come join us on Discord. Follow us on our socials. Everything is at Sort of the Story on Twitter, Instagram, Goodreads. Also, check out our bookshop.org affiliate page, where you can see all the books that we use as references. Now that all that business is out of the way.
Hold on, I'm Janie and that's Max.
Oh.
Listen, no, you didn't even introduce, you just went into come on. There's a system here. My story today has a lot of names, so I didn't want to add two extras into the mix to confuse people, you don't have to remember our names. All right, well, Max, what are you going to tell me about today?
Today, I'm going to tell you a very cool historical story that's a little bit of a bummer. This is the story of the Battle of Blair Mountain.
Never heard of it.
Most people haven't. So, just as an opening, I feel like I have to do this before every one of my off-topics, but I just have to establish that looking on history and things like that, I want to acknowledge my bias as someone who is, again, very, pro-socialist, pro-union, pro-workers' rights. And I know that I say that in a lot of things that it seems unrelated to, but in this case it is very related, because the Battle of Blair Mountain is the largest armed civil uprising in U.S. history since the Civil War. Cool. And it's a labor uprising in West Virginia. And I've also talked a little bit on the podcast about the history of Appalachia. I've kind of mentioned it a little bit, and this was a piece of Appalachian history that I think has kind of gone by the wayside a little bit, and it's very, very cool. And it is also a huge part of Appalachian and especially West Virginian identity. Mm-hmm. This event happened in 1920 and 1921. And this was a huge thing. This changed the course of labor rights in the United States, and it was a huge deal. Just as we get started, a couple of terms that I want to explain in case you're not familiar. So a union is a group of workers who get together in order to put pressure on the organization or the industry that they work for, and to get better pay, better benefits, better quality of living, to maintain their work-life balance and things like that. It's just a group of self-advocating workers who come together in order to have more leverage against people who maybe don't want to pay them more.
Who could take advantage of them very easily. When
workers go on strike, it means that they stop working until their demands are heard and met. This is a term that most people might not know. Something called a yellow dog contract is when an employee, sometimes an employee who was formerly on strike and is coming back into the employ, having failed in their strike negotiations, or sometimes what's called a scab worker, or someone who comes in to replace striking workers so that, the striking workers lose that leverage that they have over their company that they're trying to put pressure on for more support. A scab worker comes in and fills that job. And oftentimes they are paid more because, they are temporary, and also because they are helping the company not only to get the job done, but also to alleviate pressure from the striking workers.
Wow. So they're willing to pay scabs more.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, it's a huge technique. But a yellow dog contract is signed either by a scab or by a worker who was striking in favor of a union, and then the union fails and they go back to work for that company. A yellow dog contract basically says, I promise that I'm not going to be a part of a union, and if I am, I can be immediately terminated.
Oh.
This is also, I should say, in the United States, that is now illegal.
Good. I was going to say, this doesn't sound like it should be illegal.
You can't fire someone for being a part of a union. That doesn't mean it doesn't happen.
They just have to come all the time.
They just have to come up with another reason for your termination.
Before you even begin, when I used to work at Target, that was a thing that people, somebody would say union as, a joke, and then managers would get, really hushed and be like, well, you can't actually talk about that. And I was like, that seems illegal.
It is illegal.
What?
You absolutely can talk about it.
And you should.
Your managers, there is decades and centuries of people working for businesses trying to put down unions. And so they will retaliate if you're not careful where you talk about it in many cases. Yeah. But also, everyone has the right to unionize. That is one of the tenets of the United States that came about in the mid-1900s. Actually, as far back as the early 1800s, but didn't really come into effect until the mid-1900s. So that's just some terms to be aware of. Oh, one more thing. In some industries, around this time, the turn of the 20th century, 19th into 20th century, companies realized that what they could do if they bought up tracts of land around wherever they were doing their manufacturing, and they would build really cheap housing. And then they would it's called company towns, where the employees would be able to live there, and it would be like, hey, this is cheaper than having your own house. You're closer to work. And, this comes out of your wages, so you don't have to worry about remembering to pay someone.
Okay.
And oftentimes in those company towns, there will be like company-run stores where it's like a grocery store, but rather than paying in money, you pay in scrip, which comes along with your wages. And all of this is something that also Amazon is trying to do now. Just a fun thing. But the reason why this ruins people's lives is because company towns are defined, like the rules are defined by the company. So if you're in a company town, the thing that comes up most of the time is that if you are fired from a company job and you live in a company town, you lose your house. They can also inflate the value of scrip so that, a granola bar you would think would be like one piece of scrip, one scrip card or something like that. And then they're like, well, actually, it's more expensive now. Now it's 5, but we're still only giving you 10 scrip. Like, so they can artificially inflate it. Yeah, there's no none of that. And also because the land is owned by the company, they have the ability to come into your home at any time.
Whoa.
So that's a fun thing. Company towns, company scrip, just some terms to know. Also, just as a general thing, if you are thinking about organizing your workplace, or if you're just interested in learning about how unionization works, check out the Emergency Workers Organizing Commission, EWOC or EWOC. They have a 6-week, 1-day-a-week course on helping you to develop connections within your company and go about it in a respectful way that at every point in the process gives, your employers the opportunity to, do the right thing and, make positive negotiations, because when workers are happy, companies do better, and that's proven, but it's also more expensive. So
amazing.
Anyways, so that's just a plug for that. I took their course last year and it was super enlightening, super interesting. If nothing else, just because of learning about the ways that union breaking works, where companies will try, especially you've probably seen about Amazon trying to break the unions and everything like that. The union breaking tactics that they use are absolutely terrifying. And EWOC talks a little bit about that. And it's just a very cool organization. So check that out. Yeah.
Who knew EWOCs were so pro-union?
So check out the Emergency Workers Organizing Emergency Workers Organizing Caramels.
Kung Fu.
EWOC. I'll put a link in the description for this episode. But very, very cool. They also, the reason why it's emergency workers organizing is because they came about when COVID hit to try and help people to, work with their employers to come to like safe practices under COVID.
Yeah. That's cool.
So anyways, with that plug out of the way, I'm going to start telling you this very cool story.
Okay.
And I want you guys to know also that this has been made into several movies. There are several books about it. There are a lot of songs about it. And this really plays out kind of like an old Western, like a cowboy movie. So just go ahead and put that like weird grainy sepia filter on in your head. So our scene is set in 1890. The United Mine Workers Union is founded.
Okay.
People who work in coal mines especially. The United Mine Workers developed this union, but over the following years, mining companies fight back against this union. They will refuse to hire people who are in the union or who are associated with people in the union. And this isn't just in the coal industry. Every massive manufacturing industry in the country is trying to, keep people from unionizing and demanding higher wages and benefits. In many cases, they have a hard time, the workers, they get smart pretty quickly. They realize that they shouldn't be talking about unionizing in front of their bosses.
Yeah.
So the companies have to get creative and they hire detective agencies, not only to try and ferret out who is like having secret unionization conversations and everything, but also as an armed muscle force, basically like a private army to evict people and to act as like personal guards for the people working at the companies. So if you've ever heard of the Pinkerton Detective Agency, that's what most of what the Pinkertons did was. They were union breakers.
I used to think that the Pinkerton detective agencies were like, oh, it's the best in the world. The reason why we know about them is because they were so good at their jobs. But I've heard a lot of stories about the Pinkerton detective agencies, and none of them are good. Like, very few of them are like positive stories.
Yeah, the Pinkertons were one of the worst offenders in this. I will say that the detective agency that comes up in this story, it might be worse. The Pinkertons, one of the really cool things that they did...
They're still around, by the way, but they're a lot of security now.
They sold to a Swiss securities fund like 4 or 5 years ago or something like that. But the cool thing that the Pinkertons did, one of the reasons why they were, remembered in history, is that they hired women and non-white people as detectives, because they realized that, there are some places that a white guy in a trench coat can't get into. People kind of try to spin it now as like, oh, they were so inclusive.
Yeah.
And they did get a lot of opportunities, especially to women, which is very cool. But at the same time, they were exploiting those women, and they were exploiting workers. They were strike breaking. Like, they were not paying those people the same and everything. Like, so it's, they allowed people to work for them, basically, which is a very low bar. So around this time, there were all of these labor uprisings happening around the United States. The United Mine Workers, around 1920, elect the president of their union, John L. Lewis, and he makes a push to really unionize this area of West Virginia, because the coal mines are only hiring non-union employees, and so he's really pushing to make sure that like they can get as many people in the union as possible so that they can pressure the companies to stop their non-union only hiring practices. And it's massively successful, in part because of the contribution of this woman whose name is Mother Jones.
Oh, yeah.
She is an Irish immigrant.
This is a really cool website that you can go to now that has a lot of really great articles. It's motherjones.com.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I got a lot of my thesis articles from Mother Jones.
That's very cool. She was specifically like very pro-socialism, very pro-workers' rights. She was this older Irish-American woman who had immigrated to the US, and she really leaned in on being like, I'm Mother Jones, and she would wear like these big old black, like kind of old-fashioned dresses and like do her hair up in a bun. She really leaned into her Irish brogue and everything like that when she was like speaking to people. She was a fantastic public speaker, and she changed like a lot of people's minds. She was hugely empowering for workers. She also called all of the workers her boys.
Oh, Mother Jones.
And this was very, very intentional. She also kind of not pretended, but like emphasized her age a little bit, where she pretended that she was like a little older than she was and everything, to be like, I'm your mom. I'm just here to look out for you.
Good for her.
Which is a very good tactic. It sounds manipulative, but at the same time, like, at least someone's looking out for them.
Yeah.
Of Mother Jones, who helped with this push for unionization in Western Virginia, District Attorney Reese Blizzard of West Virginia said, "There sits the most dangerous woman in America. She comes into a state where peace and prosperity reign, crooks her finger, and 20,000 contented men lay down their tools and walk out."
Yes!
So basically...
Yes, Mother Jones!
Basically, he's saying that, like, well, these workers didn't have any problems until she started talking to them, and now she's convinced them that they're all unhappy.
Yes.
Like, that's not what happened.
Amazing.
I have a contrasting quote from a book that was written about this, called Thunder in the Mountains by Lon Savage, which I haven't read, but I did put it in our references in case you're interested in learning more about this topic. The quote from Lon Savage about this was written more recently, but what he said was, of the workers, they had been crushed and killed on their jobs and fired from them when they tried to organize a union. They had been evicted from their company houses and machine-gunned in their union tents. Periodically, they had risen in fury.
So this was even before she came along.
This is what was happening to union workers in parts of the country.
They were machine gunned in their tents?
I'll come back to that.
Okay.
But so by comparison, saying like, oh, 20,000 men will just decide that they hate work now. And it's like, after they've been like crushed to death with no recourse for their families for like justice, maintained at below poverty level and everything. But anyways, another really great Mother Jones quote is, "Pray for the dead and fight like hell for the living."
Yeah.
Which is a very cool line.
That's cool as shit. I want shirts that say that.
Yeah, so she was already a union figure. She had helped with some of the union building up in Pennsylvania with the Steel Workers Association, but she came down here to West Virginia to help recruit for the United Mine Workers Union. And at the end of this like period of intense recruitment, 3,000 miners from these West Virginia coal mines joined the United Mine Workers Union. They're all immediately fired. Oh, yeah. 3,000 workers laid off immediately for being unionized.
What, 3,000 in a union?
Mm-hmm. So the coal companies at this point are frustrated with this process of unionization. So they hire a detective agency called the Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency.
Okay.
And this is, I would propose that they are as bad as the Pinkertons, if not worse. The coal companies hire them to evict the workers who have been fired for unionizing. and to prevent further organizing.
Mm-hmm.
13 Baldwin Felts agents arrive in Matawan, which is a town in Mingo County, which is where one of the big coal mines is. 13 of them arrive, including Lee and Albert Felts. Their brother Thomas is one of the founding members of the Baldwin Felts Agency.
Mm-hmm.
Baldwin Felts agents at this time have already been involved in something called the Ludlow Massacre.
Oh, no.
In 1914. In Colorado, in the coal fields, there was also a massive unionization effort and a huge backlash from the coal companies.
Mm-hmm.
The Baldwin Felts agents evicted people from their homes, and then the unionized workers built tent colonies, and they were working together to make sure that everyone got fed and everything like that.
Yeah.
And the Baldwin Felts agents came in with machine guns and fired into the tents, and they killed 21 people.
Why were they allowed to do that?
That's a great question.
What?
They killed 21 people in the tents, including the women and children, who were the family members of unionizing workers.
Oh my god!
And no, they were never prosecuted for it.
Yeah, and they were allowed to just keep the what?
Because
How?
they're an independent detective agency,
and so they can murder at will?
Because they're working for a coal company that can pay their legal fees.
What the fuck?
Yep, so they just fire machine guns into these tents, killing 21 people.
What year is this?
This is in 1914.
Okay.
Also in Ludlow, I think that this might be a separate incident. I couldn't get clear answers on it without going into primary source material, which I don't have and don't have the money for.
Yeah.
But I think in a different incident in Ludlow around the same time, they locked women and children who were eating in one of the coal camp's cellars. They locked them in and burned them alive.
What the fuck?
Yep. So this is the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency.
Yeah, they're a little
worse. This is
worse.
what they've already done.
I don't understand.
So they roll into Matawan, which, again, is a small town in Mingo County, West Virginia, that is mostly coal workers. The first thing that happens, Albert Felts is the first one to arrive several days early. He's trying to get an idea of the situation. He goes to Mayor Cable Testerman, who is the mayor of Matawan, and he tries to bribe him with $500 to have the mayor let him into all the buildings and put machine guns on top of the buildings so they can just fire into crowds.
What the fuck? Mayor
Testerman turns him down outright. He's like, we're not doing that. These are our people.
Also, what the fuck?
But this is how bad it is.
Also, though, these are workers. These are workers. You hire them, you fire them, but they're workers.
Yep.
And this is gonna, I hesitate to even say this, but they're treating them like they are slaves that are their property.
Yeah.
Which is horrible. But, these are workers.
It is. I mean, and also, especially with company towns and with company scrip, these miners, their entire wages went back into the company in the form of the paying for their company homes, paying in company scrip. So they're not even So it's just indentured servitude by definition. Yeah, they don't have hardly anything as far as wages left over after their, company money has been paid.
I'm not gonna lie, this is what it's like to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Nothing left over after they take everything out.
Yeah. So, on May 19th of 1920, the Baldwin Felts Agency goes to a company home of a worker who has been fired for unionizing. The man of the house, the worker, is out of the house. The Baldwin Felts agents go into the house and they drag out a woman and her children, and they start throwing all of their belongings into the street in the rain. They are threatening them with machine guns the entire time.
What the fuck?
Yeah. So they are holding them at gunpoint and throwing them out of their house in the middle of the day when the man of the house is not home.
Yeah.
And just throwing all of their things everywhere. Miners who are nearby see what's happening. They try and help this family. And then they send word to town saying, these goons just came in and threw this family out of their home. What are we going to do about this? So the Baldwin Felts agents finish up with their eviction, quote unquote, which is kind of like an armed robbery.
Yeah, it is.
They go back into town and they head towards the train station so they can go back to, where they're from.
Sure, so they can go back home to their families feeling real good.
But word of what they've done gets into town before them.
Oh, no.
And the miners go to Police Chief Sid Hatfield.
Okay.
He and some of his deputies, who are also mostly miners, mine workers themselves, who have been deputized by him, they stop the Baldwin Felts agents at the train station.
Ooh, yeah.
And Police Chief Sid Hatfield tells them that they are under arrest.
Good.
And the Baldwin-Felts agents say, that's really funny because here's what we have here. And they pull out a warrant and they say, this is a warrant for Sid Hatfield's arrest.
What?
So they go to the police chief and are like, actually, we arrest you.
Uno reverse. What the fuck? What?
And this is very confusing, right? This is also...
Are they allowed to have warrants? They're not the police.
They are working... yes, they are, basically. As detectives, they are able to get, like, warrants from the state government and everything like that.
What did Sid Hatfield do?
Supposedly because he was... I mean... It wasn't clear, I guess.
We just don't like him.
So Albert Felts, one of these Baldwin-Felts detectives, has this warrant, and he's like, I'm going to arrest you.
Yeah.
And Sid Hatfield is like, hang on a minute, let me get my legal counsel. And he calls for the mayor, Mayor Testerman, who has already refused to put these machine guns on the roofs of, like, residential areas. Mayor Testerman arrives. Sid Hatfield goes to wait inside as Testerman looks over this warrant. He looks over the warrant presented by the Baldwin-Felts agents, and he says, this is a bogus warrant.
Yeah.
And immediately gunfire rings out in the square.
What?
Sid Hatfield with a gun comes out of the Testerman's jewelry shop behind him at the same time that these Baldwin-Felts agents start firing on all of them.
They just start shooting?
They just start...
Because they were found out?
Mayor Testerman says, this is a bogus warrant, and then just gunfire erupts.
What the fuck kind of... This feels like the Hunger Games.
It does.
Like the district's uprisings.
In total, when all of the dust clears, 10 men have been killed in total, including Mayor Testerman himself.
Oh my god, they killed the mayor.
And also Albert and Lee Felts of the detectives. In total, 3 of the miners and townspeople and 7 of the Baldwin-Felts detective agents are killed. This is a huge deal because the Baldwin-Felts agency is like this looming figure of like force of the company.
Yeah.
And they are like infamous the country round as being union breakers who will just kill families.
Yeah.
in
brutal ways.
Yeah. In this case, 7 out of the 13 Baldwin-Felts agents who came to town don't leave. They die.
Yeah. Good.
So this is a huge rallying cry for the union workers who are like, this is, you know, we can beat them. Like, this isn't, you know, they're just men.
They can bleed.
This gun battle is called the Mattawan Massacre.
Okay. Got another massacre, the second one in the story.
Yeah, the second one. And it is a huge rallying cry. Tensions continue to rise.
Yeah.
Workers rally behind the union as they realize that it is possible to succeed.
I've never heard of this before.
Yeah.
I'm like, how have I never heard of this before?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Tensions continue to rise, and company workers rally behind the union because they realize that their cause is actually possible.
Yeah.
And they start working together, and they also realize what the stakes are because they've just This is also, I should say, this is in the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia. This is a relatively rural area, but many of the men are World War I veterans.
Yeah.
So some of them have their old service weapons, rifles, shotguns, things like that. But they're also, you know, in a really rural area. Most of the stuff that they use is for like hunting and trapping. And then these guys are coming with machine guns.
Oh my God.
So they realize that they have to kind of muscle up. At the same time, the companies realize that the unionizing workers are not going to go down without a fight. And so they start hiring more and more people to come in and bolster their forces.
How are they finding people that are willing to murder?
That's a great question.
Jesus.
It's mostly the Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency sends in more people, but also the coal company works together with local law enforcement, the county police, the state police.
Good.
And they send requests.
Oh, wait, no, not good. Sorry. Coal company, not the
the coal company is working together with the county police, the state police, and they send requests to the president asking for a federal police force to help put down this uprising.
It's not an uprising. They're being attacked.
Yep. The state police come in and are working with the coal companies, especially. The state police are especially brutal. There is a story about a bunch of displaced mine workers who were living in tents who came in. And the story is that possibly one of the workers accidentally fired on the state police, to which the state police responded by firing machine guns into the tents again. So people died. It was a whole thing. It was very clear that whose side the state police were on.
Yeah.
January 26, 1921, Sid Hatfield goes to trial for the murder of Albert Feltz.
What?
The man who he gunned down in
After
the Mattawan
Albert
massacre.
Feltz's side shot first.
Yeah. Well, it's unclear who shot
Okay.
first, but everyone started shooting.
Okay.
Sid Hatfield is tried for the murder of Albert Feltz. He is acquitted of the murder, in part because he kind of leans into his like hero thing, and he, the stories about what he did keep getting more and more grand and everything, and people rally behind him. And also because he's being tried locally, a lot of the people on the jury are mine workers themselves, because it's impossible to have an impartial jury when like 95% of your population
works in the mines.
Miners. Yeah. So Sid Hatfield is tried and acquitted, but at the same time, the union is losing steam. The mines are starting to reopen with scab workers who have come in to take the pressure off the companies while the people are striking and everything. Scab workers who have signed those yellow dog contracts so they can't unionize or they will be fired. So it's kind of like they're worried now that they're like losing steam a little bit.
Yeah.
May 1921, 5 months later, the unions launch an assault on the mines that are being run by non-union workers. They basically try and fuck up the mine. So they're like, you can't work here. They don't like attack the miners, but they're like, we're trying to fuck this up so that they can't get anything done here, basically. They wage a 3-day battle, which ends in a truce. And the president declares martial law in West Virginia to put down this uprising, quote unquote. However, it, again, very quickly it becomes clear who this martial law is going to benefit, because miners are being prosecuted and jailed for the most minor infractions. Things like, I mean, this isn't an example from history, but like things on the caliber,
small.
Yeah, things on the caliber of like jaywalking, they will be thrown in jail for.
Yeah. I thought you were saying that there's the most minor infractions, like there's all the infractions were minor based and like mine based, and I was like, oh, what's that minor infraction?
So this martial law, basically all of the unionizing workers are being like heavily prosecuted and jailed. Meanwhile, the state police and the Baldwin Feltz agents and everything like that are immune. The martial law does not apply to them, basically.
Yeah.
So it's very clear that this is not like, impartial martial law. It's specifically like martial law in that you're allowed to kill unionized workers.
Cool.
Which is fun. August 1st of 1921, Sid Hatfield goes on trial again, this time in McDowell County, which is several counties over, because he has been charged with dynamiting a coal tipple, which is one of the structures that coal is transferred on.
Yeah.
He travels to McDowell County on August 1st with his wife and with his friend Ed Chambers and his wife. So the four of them arrive at the McDowell County.
Nice little double date.
Yeah. The four of them arrive at the McDowell County Courthouse. They open the doors. They start to go in.
No.
And a group of Baldwin Feltz agents standing at the top of the stairs in the courthouse fires down at them, killing Sid Hatfield instantly.
Oh my God.
Sid Hatfield does not make it to trial. He is gunned down by Baldwin Feltz agents in the courthouse.
In the courthouse?
In the courthouse. His friend Ed Chambers is shot and bleeding, but not dead. And Ed Chambers' wife is over him, sobbing for them to stop. And one of the Baldwin Feltz agents comes up and shoots him in the head. Every single one of the Baldwin Feltz agents was acquitted of this crime.
What?
Yep. In a courthouse. They
came up and shot him in the head.
He was on the ground, bleeding, unconscious,
Unarmed.
and they came up and shot him in the back of the head. Also, Hatfield and Chambers and their wives, all of them unarmed.
Jesus fucking Christ.
So, their bodies are returned to Mattawan. As I said, every single one of the Baldwin Feltz agents are acquitted of this crime. This is another moment of just fire and fury for the miners. Sid Hatfield, who had become like a huge figure for their movement, has just been publicly slain. Yeah. So they begin to organize. They, again, continue working on arming themselves and preparing, because this is very clearly now an outright war.
Yeah, they're being attacked.
They establish patrols around the Union towns and everything like that, like the tent towns that they've erected. Meanwhile, Sheriff Don Chafin, who is the sheriff of, I think,
are they still
Logan
going to
County?
work? They're not still going to work.
No, they're striking.
Okay, good. Okay.
Sheriff Don Chafin is the sheriff of Logan County, which is nearby, and he is very anti-union.
Yeah.
He 100% sides with the coal companies, with the local state police that are gunning these people down in the streets.
Yeah.
Again, I know that I am biased in this case
No,
because
but they're
I absolutely
actually
believe in...
There's no bias if you're actually just murdering unarmed people in courthouses and while they're in tents and shit.
Yeah.
And children. There's no bias. You can't murder children.
Mm-hmm. Sheriff John Chafin sends his Logan County troopers to just make havoc in these the like little tent towns of the unionized miners and everything. Mm-hmm. The miners capture the deputies that he sends. They take their weapons and then they set them free, and they like run scared out of the forest. Mm-hmm. On August 7th, so this is 6 days later, the United Mine Workers leaders from the District of West Virginia call for a rally in Charleston, West Virginia. Frank Keeney and Fred Mooney, who are like prominent union organizers at the time, speak. They call on West Virginia Governor Ephraim Morgan to hear and grant the miners' demands. Morgan rejects them out of hand. He's like, I'm not listening to you. You are ruining my state. Oh my God. Again, this is proof that the miners are not going to get what they want through, the proper channels. The miners prepare to march on Mingo County to free the unionized workers who have been captured by Baldwin Felt's detectives and agents and jailed there by the coal company. Mm-hmm. So they are prepared to march on Mingo and free those miners and hopefully like kind of take back control of this whole situation. Mother Jones herself tells them not to march. She says that while the unionized workers have been preparing what little arms they have and preparing for this, at the same time, the coal companies have been hiring like private armies basically that are armed with machine guns and have the funding of this massive industry and everything, in addition to the support of local, state, and federal police. So she's like, don't march on Mingo County. You will all die and it isn't worth it.
Yeah.
August 20th.
Listen to your mother.
August 20th, about 2 weeks later, miners gather in Kanawha County. Within 4 days of kind of the word going out that they're marching on Mingo County, 13,000 of these unionized mine workers gather and march on Logan County, where Sheriff Don Chafin is ready and waiting. Mm-hmm. Also, most of the miners, I know I mentioned this, but are World War I veterans, and they are using their service issue rifles and shotguns. Yeah. And there's a quote from a Baptist Reverend, John Wilburn, who joined with the unionized miners in marching on Logan County. He said, "It's time to lay down the Bible and take up the rifle."
Yeah,
which is
oh my God.
the most spaghetti Western line I've ever heard. So some of these unionized workers who are marching on Logan County, a small group of them comes across a railroad, and a Chesapeake and Ohio train, which I think is a train company, is going at low speed down the railroad, and these workers are like, that'd get us there faster. And they commandeer the train. They rename it the Blue Steel Special, and they ride it all the way to Logan County. A man named Bill Blizzard kind of assumes de facto leadership of the coalition of miners. Yeah. Sheriff Chafin, at the same time, he's leading the anti-union forces. He's backed by not only his own police, the local police, but the Logan County Coal Operators Association, who have poured huge amounts of money into this, and 2,000 armed guards with machine guns, which at the time was the nation's largest private armed force.
Oh my God.
Skirmishes begin around October 25th. President Warren G. Harding threatens to send in federal troops to end the fighting. At the same time, the mine workers, in order to recognize each other, have started wearing red bandanas around their necks. And there is a myth that this is where the term redneck comes from.
It's not true.
They did call themselves the Redneck Army, but this was long after the term had already been coined. A redneck is someone who, it refers to the idea of like people who work outside getting a sunburn on the back of their neck from like working in the fields and everything like that. So that's where it comes from. It's a much older term, but they were kind of using this as like a rallying cry where they were like, we are the workers. Yeah. So they start wearing these red bandanas around their necks. They are called the Redneck Army, the unionized workers. When Warren Harding calls for kind of a ceasefire, he threatens to send in these federal troops, and the miners sit down, they talk about it, and they're like, this has gone too far. You know, they all turn back around and start going home. Okay.
Wow. After all that.
Sheriff Chafin has spent a lot of time and a lot of money, pulled on a lot of connections to assemble his private army.
He doesn't
and he
want
is
them to
not
leave.
ready to back down.
Oh my god. But he doesn't need to.
He goes to the town of Sharples, which is just north of Blair Mountain,
Okay.
where they are all the workers are gathering outside of Logan County. He goes to the town of Sharples, and he and his men gun down Union sympathizers and their families.
As they're retreating?
As they're retreating.
Whoa.
Word gets back to the Union forces, and they turn back around.
Yeah.
To get vengeance for these people who are just killed outright.
But that's what the sheriff wanted.
It is. But also, he killed not even the people who were striking.
Yeah.
Union sympathizers.
Yeah.
Just people who agreed with what they were doing.
Yeah.
Killed them.
Wow.
And their families.
Wow.
In order to make sure that they couldn't
fight.
back down.
Yeah.
Exactly. So the miners were kind of forced to turn back around. They commandeer more trains, which is kind of hilarious to me.
Yeah.
By August 29th, this has erupted into full war.
Mm-hmm.
Sheriff Chafin hires private planes to drop homemade bombs
what the fuck?
on the miners. Most of them contain poison gas and explosives left over from World War I.
These people are just doing this, too. Like, he was able to find people who were willing to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's fucking bleak.
To drop bombs on people who had no homes and were just trying to get any kind of basic human decency rights.
And also who were coming back because women and children and people who didn't have anything to do with this had been murdered.
Yep.
Oh my god.
Yep. So Chafin hires these private planes to drop these homemade bombs on the miners. Again, most of these are left over from World War I, just like army surplus, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
One of the bombs failed to explode, and the miners took it in, and it was later used in evidence because Chafin and his men were like, that never happened. We never dropped those bombs.
Oh, amazing.
And so the mine workers were like, oh, you mean these bombs? And brought in an unexploded bomb to prove that
that's dangerous.
This degree of, violence had happened. Just the brutality of it.
Yeah.
General Billy Mitchell has the Maryland Army bombers running surveillance for Sheriff Chafin, watching over the mine workers with his planes and everything. The West Virginia National Guard is called in. The miners, though, are continuing to battle through. They are heading for Logan County. Over the course of the next week, they make headway towards Logan County, but they never quite reach it. A song becomes the chant of these workers. And the song is called "We'll Hang Don Chafin from a Sour Apple Tree."
Oh. Okay.
That becomes, their war cry. Over the course of the next week, they get towards Logan County. But on September 2nd, federal troops arrive, sent by the president.
Oh, no. Do we know who the president was at this point in 1920?
Harding.
Okay.
President Warren Harding.
All right.
He sends federal troops in. And again, most of these mine workers are veterans themselves.
Yeah.
They refuse to fire on U.S. troops.
Okay.
They lay down their weapons and they sit down to talk. They are not given any concessions, but they start to head home.
Yeah.
Some of them are afraid of their firearms being confiscated.
Yeah.
So they hide them, which is a lot of how we've put together, the actual military formations, is that we've found little caches of weapons buried in the woods around Logan County and on Blair Mountain. Historical analysts today think that if the federal troops hadn't arrived when they did, the mine workers were probably 48 hours from breaking into Logan County and succeeding in everything that they had tried to do.
No!
But they refused to fire on U.S. troops.
No! Well, I mean, that's honestly for the best. That would have been an even bigger massacre.
Yeah.
They would not have made it out of there.
In the end, 30 people on Sheriff Chafin's of his army and the associated police forces were killed. Numbers range on how many miners were dead because they didn't have any kind of clear accounting system, no clear structure. But the estimate is from 50 to 100 deaths of the unionized workers. Hundreds more are injured by, these makeshift bombs and everything like that.
Oh.
The miners say, one of the miners, as they are putting down their weapons, walking away from these U.S. troops, one of them shouts, "It was Uncle Sam did it."
Ooh, yeah.
Which is a kind of a point of pride where the miners realize it's clear that they would have won.
Yeah.
And the only reason they didn't is because they, again, mostly veterans, refused to go against their country.
Yeah.
But it also made a really clear message to the coal mining companies that, like, you can't win this on your own.
Yeah,
like, you had to call in the U.S. government to stop us.
Yeah.
So that's kind of a point of pride.
This isn't your victory.
Yeah, so it was Uncle Sam did it. Afterwards, 985 mine workers, are indicted for murder, conspiracy to commit murder, accessory to murder, and treason. Most of them are acquitted because most of them are tried locally, but some of them are in jail for decades after for the events.
And I bet none of the fucking detectives face any backlash.
So here, this is the Battle of Blair Mountain outside of Logan County. Bill Blizzard, who was leading the unionized mine workers, was brought to trial, and the unexploded bomb was brought into his trial to prove the brutality that these forces were exhibiting against the unionized workers. Yeah. And he was acquitted.
Oh, hell yeah.
It worked as evidence.
Well, then I wish they would have brought it in for all of them. They want to keep carting around the unexploded bomb.
Yeah.
Fuck.
So in the short term, the coal industry kind of wins. They don't have to concede to any of the union workers' requests. Conditions continue to get worse over the course of the following decades up until probably the 1930s, when unionization starts back up again. But in the 1930s, these workers have now had 10 years to think on it, and word of what they did has spread across the country. The Battle of Blair Mountain is one of the huge things that kind of gave hope to the Steelworkers Union in Pennsylvania, and in the 1930s they were able to unionize. This kind of set off a huge chain of unionization and like workers' rights and improvements in working conditions and like increased regulation of manufacturing and everything. So in the long run, this was a win. They lost the day, but they won the war in many ways.
It's just the things that they were asking for were, hey, we want to keep working for you. Please stop fucking killing us.
Yeah. So, as I said, this was at the time the largest armed uprising in U.S. history since the Civil War. This is a huge part of the Appalachian identity. The people of Appalachia, this is a huge thing. A lot of like folk songs in the area are still sung about this and about the idea that you can't trust,
the government.
Well, yeah, you can't trust, a company can't care about you, like that kind of thing. It became really clear around this time and after that the company towns and company scrip are effectively indentured servitude and are outlawed in many ways.
But again, Amazon's trying to bring it back.
Yeah, those laws can be circumvented, but a really cool thing about this, I linked to a couple of articles on this, so this has a much more in-depth history than I've been able to get into, but a really cool thing about this is that this is in 1920 and 1921. This was prior to like Brown v. Board and everything like that. Yeah. But in these small mining towns like Matawan, actually just specifically in Matawan County, the school was integrated. Yeah. Which is significant because a huge part of these workers a huge portion of them were Black. Yeah. The ones that were white were oftentimes immigrants from Poland, Hungary, and Italy. Yeah. So they were, kind of also not necessarily respected by the general population at the time. Yeah. So the schools were integrated, but within the company town, when these families were kind of forced by their low wages to move into the company towns, they were segregated. So the company town was segregated because they didn't want the workers talking and unionizing. At one point during this whole struggle, in the early part of the escalation, the cafeteria had been segregated so that, there was a black side of the cafeteria and a white side of the cafeteria. And the mine workers on both sides went into the cafeteria with rifles and told cafeteria workers, we're going to sit together and you can stop us if you want.
Oh, fuck yes.
So that was like, and to be clear, this wasn't like they were like woke. It was just, they realized the importance of coming together in a common goal of and they also realized the
manipulation tactic behind segregating a community. Yeah.
Exactly. So that was a huge deal. There's also the story of the Atlanta washerwoman strike, which was in, I think, 1890. There's a really cool article about it that I will also try and remember to link in the notes. But the Atlanta washerwoman strike, a lot of freed slave women, especially Black women in Atlanta, Georgia, immediately became laundresses,
Yeah.
washerwomen, but they were being paid nothing. They were being paid $4 to $6 a month.
Yeah.
A month.
Yeah.
Not 46, $4 to $6 a month to work in laundries. And
the laundries were fucking rough. It was boiling water and bleaches.
Working with lye and everything.
Yeah.
It was horrible. So all of these freed Black women in Atlanta came together and they formed one of the first kind of like union efforts in the U.S.
Amazing.
They worked together, and the cool thing that they did also was that about 95% of the laundresses in Atlanta were these Black women, but the other 5% who were white, they went to them and they were like, hey, join us. Like, we all deserve better.
Amazing.
Which was very cool. It was also an example of like diversity winning over actually treating everyone appropriately, which is really cool.
Doing the bare minimum.
So the Atlanta washerwoman strike was a huge deal. Very, very cool. In modern times, unfortunately, this struggle is still ongoing. As we know, like, workers' rights are not in great shape right now.
A huge resurgence of people having to fight for their rights during COVID.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, yeah. Which, on the one hand, is exciting because it means that more people are,
being educated about this.
Yeah, and they're being given the tools to stand up for themselves. But it also sucks that we have to do this again. In 2016, Warrior Met it's a coal company. In 2016, it was about to go bankrupt, and the union workers came together and decided to take massive temporary pay cuts to save the company. Okay. And they, in return, Warrior Met promised them raises and benefits down the line once the company was kind of
stable again.
Back in the black.
Yeah.
Those benefits never came to pass, and so the Warrior Met workers unionized and striked against Warrior Met.
Yeah.
And the force that Warrior Met hired to like investigate unionization efforts and things like that, and to try and find scabs who are willing to work. Yeah. They said to the workers of Warrior Met who were striking, we're going to starve you out. Because they were like, you guys are running out of money.
They're running out of money because they accepted pay cuts for you.
And also because when they're striking, they're not being paid. They're saying, like, we're going to starve you out. Like, you're not going to get what you want. We're going to starve you out. Yeah. But all of these Warrior Met workers, unionized workers, have come together and they've built food kitchens, and they, like, have community activities so that they can all, like, get together. Good. And kind of support each other and make sure that everyone is taken care of. And so the unionized workers responded, you won't starve us out. Good. And they won't, which is really cool.
And they're still striking right now?
I don't think that they are anymore, but that was the case in 2016. It's also worth noting that coal workers, even now, are having to sue their companies for black lung, which is a consequence of working in the coal mines, which is also something you think about. All of, like, in the Battle of Blair Mountain, all of these men who were in even more unsafe conditions than we have today. Sick. So sick, black lung, in addition to every other goddamn disease, like, insane. And it's wild that we still have to, if you work for a coal company, the coal company can claim that it's not their fault that you have black lung. But anyways, a really cool story about workers' rights. If you're interested in learning more about this, Thunder in the Mountains by Lon Savage is a book that's specifically about the battle for Blair Mountain and the Mattawan Massacre and everything. There's also, if you're interested in more Appalachian history as a whole, What You Are Getting Wrong About Appalachia by Elizabeth Catt. I've linked both of those in the show notes. They're very cool. And again, if you are interested in unionizing your workplace, check out EWOC, the Emergency Workers Organizing Commission.
That was fantastic. I cannot believe I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it's one of those historical events that just kind of gets left by the wayside. Yeah. And I think it's so, like, even as someone who, like, is interested in unionization and who, like, is, I'm trying to educate myself about the history of how this has worked and everything. I didn't know hardly, and I had heard the term before, but I didn't know hardly anything about it. Yeah. And this is an insane event. This is outright, like, a company dropping bombs on its workers.
Yeah, like, actually murdering
killing families in their homes. Like, and also the workers coming up against obscene odds to try and make a better future. So
also the history of rednecks was a thing. I put that on my list too because the thing went around TikTok, and that's a big thing. It's like, did you know that rednecks, because And I didn't know it was a myth, and they didn't know it was a myth. So that's something that's going around TikTok right now that nobody knows is a myth, but
yeah,
that's also one of those things where, I mean, the spirit is there. But their whole thing is like, everybody thinks of rednecks as like conservative assholes who hate whatever, and they're like, no, these are pro-union, like pro-workers' rights. That's what they were saying.
Yeah. Redneck was originally a slightly derogatory term for basically like a blue-collar worker. Right. Like anyone who works like with their hands outside, you know, and it has transformed, and
evolved or devolved.
Yep. So while it is true that the United Mine Workers were the redneck army, they weren't the first people to use the term. So it's accurate, but it's not you know, true.
Okay.
Well, I just read a whole linguistic discussion on it because apparently that came up. Someone on a podcast said the wrong thing, and someone was like, no. And then the person on the podcast was like, I'm pretty sure. And they were like, no, though. Here's an article.
You can be pretty sure, except you're wrong.
Yeah, so.
All right. Anyways. Well, we wouldn't know anything about that. We're always right. So we're one of those podcasts that is never wrong. Cool. Good job.
Thanks. Good job to you, too.
Guys,
thanks for hanging out with me.
Rate and review this podcast, please. I mean, what else have you got to do? All right. Probably nothing, right? Give us 5 stars. And hang out with us on social media and join the Discord and let Max know what you thought. And if you visited that website and took that course. Max wasn't even working at the time she took that course. She just wanted to take it.
Yeah, because I also, I want to be a resource for people who want to unionize, and I want to, have a guide on how to do it. So
and that's
also
an option for you to be that person as well. Yes. So have fun.
You can become that person. And also, if you're looking for some help and you need some advice, send me a message. I'm happy to talk about it.
Let her be your resource.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Guys, have a great day.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Rip your abusive husband to shreds.
Yeah. Tear off his dick.
Tear off his skin.
Yeah, wear it like a cloak.
And then slap him with it.
Woo! Put him in the East River.
Put him in the West River. Put him in both.
Rip him in half and put him in 2 different rivers. So that his soul can never find peace.
Woo!